Hi, this is Lady Lex UK and this is Dr. Lex number 6. From your queries, I have chosen how to open a door when all the gems have been collected in the scene, how to pick up a puppet with another puppet, how to input a number code using a interface, and how to place objects randomly about your scene. Enjoy! This comment is from i420x Gaming.
Do you have a video on how to open a locked door only after all the collectibles are found?
Right, this is a tutorial that I have done previously in other ways, but to answer a specific question, okay? This rabbit needs to collect all 5 of these collectibles before they can get through the door. So here's my rabbit. I want to go through the door. I can't. I can collect some of these. Still can't get through the door. I have to collect them all. And now I can. As soon as I've collected them all, the door will open. Right, so let's have a look and see how this is done. Okay. First of all, the method that I have used for collecting objects is the same as in my sword inventory. So we have a trigger zone for collect, and these objects have a microchip inside, and they are looking for they've got a tag in called collect. So when this trigger zone detects the tag, this tag will be activated. And when it's activated, it makes a sound. It changes a variable. It destroys itself. That's just a rotator, so that the collectible rotates. So this variable is looking for a variable called collected. And it's adding 1 every time you collect one of these. So if you were collecting and you had a score, that would be what it was for. In this case, it's for the door. So we'll look at the door logic, and in the door logic, there is our variable collected. So this, every time this is being collected, it's adding 1 through this variable modifier to this variable. You don't put this variable inside your collectible objects. You must have it outside because it will be destroyed when you pick up your objects. So make sure that variable is in a separate one. It's in the door logic, so that's fine. So we're going to collect. Then we've got a calculator in here that says the current value of that variable. Does it equal 5? There's 5 collectibles. So if I've collected all of them, and I'm standing in the trigger zone for the door, so through the AND gate, then I've got a counter that says, yes, okay, you can open the door, and then we've got the keyframe to open the door. That's going to keep the door constantly open. It's not going to shut again because we've reached this counter. That's what this counter is there to do. If you wanted it so that the door opens and shuts as you walk in and out of the trigger zone, you don't need this counter. I just personally like doors, if they're unlocked and open, just to stay open. So I leave it as that. But that's a counter for doing that. There you go. It's as simple as that. You just have a calculator, a variable, add to the variable when you pick up your collectible, check to see you've got the right number, and then you can do anything you need to do, open a door or whatever. This comment is from Abigail Posey.
Is it possible to use a puppet to grab, pick up or hold another puppet which would be smaller than the original primary puppet in the scene?
Okay, so we've got a big puppet and a small puppet, so the puppet I want to pick up. So let's see what I've built. So I'll possess this puppet, and this puppet has got a follower in, so the little puppet will walk around and follow you. And if you get close enough, a little triangle appears above the puppet's head. You press triangle and he picks him up in his hand and he walks around with him. And when he doesn't want to, you press triangle again and he'll drop him. So there we go. There's a pickup puppet. Very simple. I mean, there's no animations of picking it up and that sort of thing. So it can be expanded on and made a little bit more interesting. But this is the principle of it. So let's have a look. Right. Okay, so in the small puppet, I have a tag called collectible. This goes to a node, which goes to a text displayer, which displays the triangle above his head. And I have a NOT gate attached to the power of the node, and that NOT gate is wired into something in the bigger puppet, and so is the teleporter in the small puppet. So let's have a look at the big puppet. Okay, so I have a trigger zone. This is looking for the tag called collectible, which is this tag here. So it's looking for that tag. If it's found the tag and you press triangle, so I've wired the triangle into that AND gate, then it's going to change this selector to the next output. And the next output, which is B, is then wired to this NOT gate, which is wired into the power of the node, and this teleporter, which will teleport our small puppet onto the tag called hand, and the tag is attached to the hand there. Okay, so what is happening here is when you're on A, nothing's happened. Both puppets are separate. When you're on B, then it's going to teleport our puppet into the hand. And it does that because you've pressed the triangle while the puppet was next to you. Now this keyframe raises up his hand like so. So this is also attached to B, so that he's holding the puppet like that. This node works because this will turn off the text displayer with the triangle on if you've got the puppet picked up, because you don't want the triangle above his head while he's being carried. That's a matter of taste, really, because it is the same button, the triangle button, to drop the puppet. So you could always have that triangle above his head, but I've chosen so that it turns itself off. So when I pick it up, he's not got a triangle above his head. Only when he's dropped. And this puppet can do all the other things that you want it to. There is no difference. You obviously cannot pick yourself up, and you can't pick this other puppet up. That's not how it works. You would have to swap to this puppet, and I did do a tutorial on swapping characters with the swapping mechanic if you want to use that. So it's easy to swap between these two puppets. But there you go. You could just add something fancy if you wanted some animation of the actual pickup. But there we go. There is a puppet pickup. This comment is from Dmitry Tielpakov.
Please help. I 80% made realistic phone. You can wander through the menu, write messages, play games. But I don't know how to solve one problem, a set of numbers. It's probably not very difficult. But I don't understand how to start. I have each number a separate zone and have a finger with a label. That is, when pressed, it is necessary that numbers appear on top, one by one, and more so that you can wash.
Right, I wasn't 100% sure what they were after, but my understanding is they've got some sort of phone with the numbers on, and they wanted to be able to display what numbers you're pressing. So to make this a usable tutorial, what I've decided to do is create a code input device. with a code that you need to put in order to activate this light. I've got a light here that will only turn on if you put in the correct code, and that could be an unlocked door or whatever. Okay, so let's show you what I've made. So I've got an interface here to put in my numbers. You'd obviously make a much prettier, nicer looking thing than this. Okay, so I can put in my numbers by grabbing with the R2 button. And there's a little noise as I put the numbers in. If I put in the incorrect numbers, I get a negative sound and they go back to 0. If I put in the correct code, it turns on the light, and now I can no longer select any of the buttons. Okay, so let's see how this is done. Right, so I created a block. I placed a text displayer on it with the number, and I also set it to be grabbable. Then I copied it a few times and made sure all the numbers were correct for the keyboard. Then I created a microchip and made a grab sensor for every single one of the blocks and wired our sense grab to each one of these blocks in turn. So every single one of those has got a grab sensor. Then I created an XOR gate and wired every single one's grab sensor to the XOR gate. So just from top to bottom all the way down, just to fill up that XOR gate. And then I created a selector and I wired the grab sensor to their relevant number. So don't forget, A is 0 on a selector, so the first block is wired to B, then C, then D, then E, until we get down to the bottom, and then our last grab sensor was wired to A, which is the 0. Right, now what happens now is when you grab any of these buttons, this XOR gate checks to see if any buttons have been pressed. If so, it then moves to the next output on this selector. This selector is going to choose the position on the display. So I've got a 4-digit number that you've got to put in. So I've got A to E on here. So A is nothing. A is we haven't pressed a number yet. And then the first number, it will be on output B. So what is happening is when you grab one of these sensors, it's going to change one of these to that number. So if I grabbed this grab sensor got activated, it's going to activate F, which is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. That's going to be number 5. And that's going to output a number 5 from this active port. So all of these variable modifiers are going to modify a variable for each of the positions. So when we're on position 1, we're going to turn on this variable modifier. It's going to receive a number from this active port, and it's going to change this number on this variable to this number here. So this variable name pos1, that's that variable, and it's just going to set when powered on to the number, and the number is coming from our selector. When you press another button, this is going to go to the next output, so it's going to go to the next number. It's going to turn on this variable modifier, which is looking at position 2, and it's going to set this variable, and that goes on until we get to the end. Here are our number displayers. That's going to display the number from our the current value of all of our variables. And then we've got a calculator. That's looking at the current value. So this one's looking at position 1. It's looking at the current value. So we wire the current value into A and looking to see if it equals In the case of our code, which was 6631, the first number is a 6. So it's looking to see, is this a 6? This one's looking to look to see if it's 6. This one's looking for 3, and this one's looking for 1. And we wire those results all into an AND gate. So it's checking to see if all of these are correct. If they're correct, then I'm going to set off this counter to say, right, ready, unlock door, or whatever it is. This counter full is then going to do two things. It's going to turn on this light, and it's going to make the level up sound. I've also got some NOT gates here. These are quite important for resetting. So if you don't get the right number, it will all reset, etc. So if all of these are not correct, if any one of these is not correct, then it goes in this NOT gate, not correct. Then, and you are on E, so if you're on the last output and these are not correct, then we're going to reset all of our numbers, reset all of our variables back to 0. So they're all separate and they're all resetting when powered on, like so. And we also get the sound to say rejection. If we get the correct number, we want this to turn off our selector and our XOR gate. Now our XOR gate also has a sound effect on it. So there's the sound effect. So every time you press a button, it's going to make this sound effect. We don't want that to happen when we've got the correct one, and we don't want the numbers changing again. So we want to turn off this selector and this selector when this is full. So we've got a NOT gate, and we're saying when this is not full, then there will be power to this selector and power to this OR gate. So when this is full, there's no longer going to be any power, so these will turn off, so you won't get any more noises if you try to grab any of those symbols, and it won't change the number anymore. And that's it. I know it's a bit complicated, this one, and there's lots of wires and lots of gadgets, but I have put this up in the Dreamverse for you to see, so you can have a good look at this. Maybe have a look at it while I'm explaining the video, if it's possible for you to run both together at the same time, and check it out for yourself. But there you go, and you can choose your own number. Just change the numbers in this calculator, and what it does and how you use it from here is entirely up to you. So there you go. There is a number code generator for locking of doors. This comment is from Callistus J.
I'm trying to make a treasure hunt stage where there are 3 gems hidden in the level, but I want the gems to be in different locations every time you repeat the level. I've been trying to use randomizers and emitters, but nothing is working and I'm not very experienced with logic. Do you have any idea how to make 3 gems appear in a number of set places that are randomly chosen every time you start the scene?
Right, okay, I've tried various methods for this. I've tried emitters, but I decided in the end that the best method was to use tags and teleporters. So what I've done is I've placed a load of tags. This method, I've only used one selector. It does get a bit complicated when you're trying to chain selectors. So to make things simpler for yourself, limit your locations down to 10. So I've got 10 locations, and I've called the tag location. They're all identical, and they are wired with the power from the power socket on the bottom there. You can see, there we go. Those are wired from each of these outputs on this selector. So when these options are chosen, they're going to turn on the tag. So they're all turned off unless they are chosen on this randomizer. And what I've got is I've got my 3 blocks. So these could be 3 gems, 3 objects, whatever you need to spread about your world. And they are going to be randomly placed around on these tags. So the way it works is I've got a timer. This is set to 0.1 seconds, so it does it really quickly. So let's just play it so you can see. That was so quick, actually. Let's not do it in play mode. Let's do it in this mode. So I'm going to turn it on. Boom, boom. Again. There we go. You see they are randomly positioning themselves on these tags. They're not going to place themselves on the same tag. I've set it out so the randomizer is in shuffle mode. That means that it predetermines the order and then puts them all out one at a time, so that you don't get a duplication. So what it does, I've got a timer. It's on a loop, so it loops around itself. So when the timer is finished, it loops around and resets. So it goes around in a loop, like so. When it gets to the end, it chooses a randomized tag by sending power to the randomizer. And it also goes to the next output on here. So it starts off with A, which is the red block, and the red block has got a teleporter, and that's going to teleport to location, which is the tag that is currently powered. And then it will go to B, and it will do the same for the second block, and that will go to the location tag that is powered, and so on and so on. When it gets to D, this is when it's going to turn off. So when it gets to D, I've got it wired to a NOT gate, and that NOT gate is wired to the power on the timer, so that when it gets to D, it stops the timer, so that it no longer loops round to A and does it again. So that's what's stopping the whole system. It's going to pick, when it gets to D, it will pick another location, but it won't move around on this selector and go back to the beginning and put the first block in that location. And it would do that if I took this wire out. So if I took the wire out and turn it on, you'll see these are randomly being placed around the circle completely randomly, and that is something you might want. So the D stops it, so it just does the 3 and then it stops. But you might want a system where you just want these things randomly moving around all the time. Maybe you've got a display or something and you just want it to look random and put up random lights or something. There we go, that's a way to do it. So this is a really good way of randomizing outputs. At the moment these are teleporting, but they could just as easily power on some lights or some text or anything that you like it for it to do. But that's the method. So that's a randomizer with 3 objects being randomized and their locations. Well, that was Dr. Lex number 6. I hope there was something in there of interest to you. Thank you for everyone that sent in their queries and comments. Please keep them coming. Without your questions, I wouldn't have this segment. I apologise that I cannot answer every single query or comment with a video. It really is a case of whether it is something that is simple to do in a few minutes, and whether I can do it at all, because sometimes people ask me questions on things that I've not got much expertise in. I'm not an expert on absolutely every aspect of dreams, and sometimes the questions you ask are beyond me as well. So I try to answer as many as I can, and if I don't know the answer, hopefully there is somebody else out there and I can find a tutorial and direct you in their direction. Please continue to do that with your comments as well. So if you know that somebody like Neon the Coder or Tapjars has done a video on that particular thing, please feel free to tell people so that they can direct them into the help that they need. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in your dreams.